Good evening. Welcome. My name is Laura Perry, and I'm a Deputy City Manager with the City of Aurora. Thank you for joining us tonight for our Up Aurora Ranking Roundup focused on parks, recreation, and open space. Tonight, I have the privilege of introducing Mr. Steve Coffin from our Infrastructure Task Force to say a few words.
I will be quick because we want to get right into the meat of the matter, but thank you all. I want to echo what Laura just said. Thank you all for showing up. This is a great turnout. We really need your input. Parks, as you all know, because you're here, are an incredibly important part of the fabric of every community, and it touches all of us, and we need some help with parks. And so that's why you're here, to give us some input on what you think the priorities should be. So really appreciate your time tonight and being here. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, so tonight, just before we jump in, a few housekeeping. Restrooms are found outside. We have a few snacks and waters in the back, materials at the table, as well as educational boards around the room. So highly encourage you to take some time and review the boards as well as materials on the table as you enter the room, as those are some great educational pieces regarding the city's infrastructure and capital projects. Tonight, we'll walk through a little bit about our Up Aurora process, talk about how we've worked to develop capital projects in the city, and then talk you through each of the capital projects within the Parks, Recreation, Open Space portfolio that we want to hear from you, what you value and what your priorities are from those projects. So to first start, who lives close to a park? Who lives close to open space? Who lives close to a pool? All right, so I think everyone knows what infrastructure is that we're talking about tonight, but before we jump into the meat of the presentation, a little reel to describe what infrastructure is.
What does infrastructure mean to you? Infrastructure helps you stay healthy. Build Up Aurora, it's our future.
Check. It's not on, but we can hear you. Okay.
What does
All right. So, jumping into the city's capital projects and capital assets. So, the city owns and operates a lot of assets across its system, from more than 140 city facilities, 5 golf courses, 5 public libraries, over 4,300 lane miles. And every year, we invest dollars to maintain these assets. So think about your house that you live in. You have to maintain your air conditioning system, your roof, your windows. We do the same in the city. We invest dollars from our annual budget to address those items to make sure that we're prolonging the life of our assets. There is a point in time where our assets reach the end of their life. And when that happens, that requires major replacement, which costs significant amount of money to do. And there's various ways that the city, okay, good, you can hear me, all right. There's various ways that cities pay for those major costs when those occur. So to walk you through each of those various sources, I mentioned the annual budget. This is also referred to as pay as you go. So every year, the city receives revenues into its bank account, and the city invests those revenues in maintaining capital projects, so paving streets, replacing playgrounds, fixing sidewalks. Those revenues come in over time and help us pay projects as we go along. Grants and other non-city funds. So there are various grant programs where the city can submit an application and receive funds in return. These are typically competitive, so there's no guarantee. But these are also ways that cities can help address infrastructure needs. And then last is a tool called bonds. And bonds are like a mortgage on your house. So when you own your house or you buy a new house, you typically borrow money from a mortgage institution, from a bank to pay for your house. And every month you make mortgage payments over a series of years to pay back the bank for that mortgage with interest. That is exactly how a bond works. where the city borrows money for major projects that's repaid over time with interest, with revenues that are collected by the city to offset those costs. Bonds require voter approval. So within the state of Colorado, we have what's called the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, or TABOR, and that requires cities to go and ask voters for approval for bonds. And with that comes a commitment between the city and residents and voters that the city will deliver a certain number of projects that are committed to as part of a bond or ballot question. And the funding that's approved by voters and borrowed has to be spent on those projects. A little bit about capital planning. So over the last 2 years, the city has really taken a comprehensive effort to capital planning. And this little dial here shows each of the major master plans the city has undertaken. So everything from public safety to Connecting Aurora, which is the city's first transportation master plan, Parks, Recreation, and Open Space master plan, library facilities, etc. Each of these boxes you see has had touch points with the community, with the public, to engage and hear from our residents what they value most and what projects means most to them. That has resulted in recommendations in each of these master plans. Our total needs from the priorities identified in these master plans total $1.9 billion in identified needs. And this $1.9 billion comprises what we call a draft 10-year capital plan. And these projects exceed what the city can afford to do within our annual budget. So I talked a little bit about the replacement, also new construction. For example, to build a new recreation center, that cost is about $50 million. The city, unfortunately, does not have that in its annual budget and typically requires borrowing to be able to achieve and receive those funds to build something like a new recreation center. So recognizing the capital planning project needs, our capital planning efforts and prioritization, we've really worked over the last 4 years to try to pull every lever we could to address our infrastructure needs. So the first is residential streets. We heard a lot from Aurora residents about their streets in their neighborhood. There had been many years that the city had not paved residential streets. And so in 2022, the city borrowed $35 million to catch up on residential street paving, so addressing the streets in the worst condition. And then going forward in our annual budget, we've appropriated dollars every year to pave residential streets. For all of our infrastructure, condition means a lot to the city. We want to make sure we have safe and well-maintained infrastructure. And so we continually go out and assess the condition of our buildings, of our roads. So for roads, we use a condition measure called Pavement Condition Index. So we send out this fancy machine, they go measure all the streets, and they come back with data that tells us what condition it's in. And that's good, fair, poor. And so back in 2022, our pavement condition index number was 69, I'm sorry. Then now today that we've been paving over the last few years, we've had $35 million infused to catch up on our worst streets. We are now at a pavement condition index of 79, which is extremely good. And so we're very excited to continue to serve our residents and pave our residential streets. I mentioned federal infrastructure funding. In 2022, we also had the federal infrastructure bill that came out. And the city greatly benefited from applying for transportation funds to fund design and construction on various projects across the city. And so through those efforts, we've been able to leverage over $100 million in funds to help address our key needs. But unfortunately, grants, I mentioned they're one time, they're competitive, they're not sustainable for the city, but have certainly been a great tool in helping us achieve many of our needs. And then the last piece, so last year we began Build Up Aurora educational campaign about the city's needs and really engaging with residents to understand what you value and what means most to you. And that came through from all our various capital planning efforts that I mentioned earlier, as well as a series of surveys, and I'll show you some of that data in a bit. All of which has come together to develop a plan for a potential bond and other funding options to address what matters most to the community from that $1.9 billion number that I showed you on the previous slide. And that's why you're here tonight. So back in 2024, City Council recognized the need to address our infrastructure issues in the city and created our Build Up Aurora Infrastructure Task Force. And this task force's primary goal is to evaluate the infrastructure needs, engage the community, and recommend financial options to address those needs. And this slide demonstrates the members on our infrastructure task force, which is chaired by Councilmember Curtis Gardner and Councilmember Francois Bergen. The process kicked off in January of last year, where the infrastructure task force was heavily engaged in education and learning about each of the city's various capital needs across various areas, what we call focus areas. And that really has helped build understanding of various needs, and then also engagement of the community. So last year, we did various facilitated conversations. We had a broad survey that we put out. We went to festivals. We really tried to meet people where they are to solicit feedback on what matters most to residents that guide infrastructure decisions. And so tonight is the next phase of the prioritization and community feedback conversations to help shape priorities on that $1.9 billion list, and of course, influence the Infrastructure Task Force's recommendation to City Council. This slide just demonstrates the number of touch points we had last year through our public outreach. So you'll see we had over 2,600 survey responses, 45 events, and over 3,500 direct interactions. From that effort, we heard three top areas of concerns. One, public safety. So obviously, police response, fire response, but also transportation safety as well. So safe pedestrian crossings, safe bike lanes. Folks want to feel safe when they're traveling within the city from A to Z. Next, transportation infrastructure. So capacity to travel on our roads, addressing congestion, but also building out our, what we call our multimodal network, which is bike lanes, sidewalks, all of that infrastructure that helps us get from A to Z. And then last, which is why you all are here tonight, parks and recreation. Folks want amenities close to their neighborhood, like new recreation opportunities, new rec centers, improved parks, newly built parks. And so we'll dive into some of those needs tonight as we walk through this presentation. So before we pivot to walking you through each of the projects, as you watch these presentations of projects, we would like to ask you to adopt a prioritization lens. So ask yourself, as you're listening to these projects, you're welcome to take notes as you're doing them. Do these project needs reflect the critical needs that I see in my neighborhood and across the city? That's what we really want to hear from you tonight. And then we're going to ask you to rank. We're going to ask you to rank your top 5 of what you hear tonight. And Jesse Byrne and Scott from our community engagement team will walk you through that exercise after the projects. But we want you to start thinking as you're hearing about the presentations, what your top priorities are. And your impact today is very important because, as I mentioned earlier, we want to understand what the community values to ensure that we have a community-informed and technically sound capital plan, which will also shape recommendations from the Infrastructure Task Force that could include a potential bond package that I mentioned about earlier. So before we jump into slides, I do want to welcome Mayor Kaufman. Thank you, Mayor, for joining us here tonight.
Well, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. This is really an important exercise that we're going to. Laura's been so engaged in all this stuff, and it's such a difficult schedule that her family did reach out to me. And they moved. But she's working so hard on this project. I really appreciate all the staff and their involvement in it. But this is really helping us establish priorities on given areas. And so I think we have 3 on transportation, but just make 1. And then after that is
Public safety.
Public safety. So, and again, thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. So a little bit about what we've heard from the public to date. So the PROS master plan was completed several years ago. And through the master plan process, there were over 17,000 touch points of the community, with over 1,000 comments received around what folks value in regards to parks and recreation and open space. Most recently, through the Build Up Aurora community engagement, over 40% said that they define a healthy community through shared parks, recreation, and open space, which I imagine is why many of you are here tonight. There is over 51% of folks that said they'd like to see better quality of life through parks, recreation, and open space, more opportunities there. But overarchingly, you'll see on the slide a strong desire to have more and larger parks and open space, more recreation facilities, and also more access to services across the city. This slide summarizes the projects we're going to walk you through in more detail. On the, let's see, my right-hand side, you'll see a number. So as you're listening to the projects, remember the number. If that becomes and raises as a high priority for you, the number matches each of the boards. So we'll provide instructions on that after the presentation. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our Parks, Rec, and Open Space Director, Brian Green, to walk you through each of the slides.
Thank you. I don't think I need the microphone. It doesn't seem to be working. But thank you, Laura. She's done, I agree with the mayor. She's worked so hard on this, and the task force, Steve Kaufman and their whole group. It's been a pleasure to work with them. These are highly engaged folks that have listened to us talk about our needs and are helping us, and we're really wanting to reach out and get your opinion now on these. As Laura mentioned, all of the public outreach that we did on our master plan process helped us come up with this list. So this is a list of what we consider the best candidates that we can put forth for you guys to rank. And they're in no particular order on this slide.
Could you speak louder? We can't
I'm
hear
trying.
you back here.
We could, okay, thank you. So this list is in no priority order. That's what your job is going to be tonight, is to help us prioritize these and list these and rank these in the exercises they describe later. But for now, we'll go through each one of these and explain to you, just give you a little bit of idea what the scope of each project is that has made the list. So I don't have a clicker. Okay. So, and they're arranged around the room. The boards match these slides. So this first slide is the Aurora Center for Active Adults. I don't know if anybody here been to the Aurora Center for Active Adults. Thank you. You guys love that place. We get a lot of feedback from, we just did an older adult needs assessment, and we get so much feedback from our community that the Active Adult Center is very important to them. And so we feel like it made it to this list. We would like to, the project calls for $5 million to do a renovation of the Aurora Center for Active Adults. We learned some stuff in the older adults needs assessment that we would like to bring to that facility. We have ADA upgrades that we need to make to that facility, so that's what this project is. Next one is 2B. 2B is, everybody been to Aurora Reservoir? How many of you have never been to Aurora Reservoir? Well, come on out. It's a great, wonderful place. But it is 35 years old. All the facilities there were built in the late 80s, and we're being enjoyed since the 90s. And they're in a lot of the facilities need to be renovated, need to be upgraded, and we've kind of outgrown them as well. So our visitation has exceeded the amenities that we have available for people. So This project would be a $30 million renovation of all the facilities at Aurora Reservoir, including another egress and access point, because right now we have some traffic issues out there as well along Quincy. If you've ever come out there in the middle of the day on a Saturday or a Sunday in the summer, it can get really congested out there. So we have transportation in and out issues and also amenity issues there. So the next one is 2C, Aurora Sports Park expansion, the third one on the left over here. We have land that belongs to the city. It's adjacent to the existing Aurora Sports Park. Aurora Sports Park is one of the largest sports park facilities in the entire metro area, but we have room to expand it and add 4 more synthetic fields. There's room to do that, and that would be about a $20 million price tag. Yes, ma'am?
I've never heard of Aurora Sports Park.
So if you go to Colfax and you head east on Colfax, and it's on your right as you just exit, you just get kind of outside of the residential parts of the city. The Aurora Sports Park is on your right. Come out any day and come look around. There's like this in the picture. There's 3 fourplexes for baseball and softball. That's 12 fields. We have, I think, 35 soccer fields, multi-purpose fields. So it's a huge facility. We bring in tournaments with teams from all over the country, youth and recreational sports. So this project would add those 4 fields and expand a visitor services building, more parking, all on land we already own. So this is right adjacent to Sports Park. Next one, 2D. Long on the list of wants and needs and desires by the city is a second sports park in some other part of the city. This sports park, the existing sports park is in Ward 2, northeast part of the city, but so people have to travel a long ways to get there. And so it's always been on a wish list for a sports park 2 somewhere in Aurora. We don't know what that would cost. It would be really expensive. We don't know where it might be, but we want this project on there to see where it lands in terms of everyone's priorities. Now, everybody has a community park that they've been to. So the community parks, when we talk about a community park, that's the biggest parks in our system that have, the big kind of amenities. The examples we have here are Del Mar Park, Bicentennial Park, Spring Hill, and Lowry Park. These are the 4 that are in the greatest need of renovations. Del Mar and Bicentennial are over 40 years old. Lowry Park has never been fully developed since it was transferred from the Air Force to the city of Aurora. So there's a lot of need for these large parks where we can have people come and gather for larger events and larger things. And so that is project number 2E. Costs us about, we estimate that it would cost about $15 million per park to do those renovations. I also want to mention that if you're having trouble orienting yourself to where these projects are, the first 2 boards over here behind Scott are maps that have all of these names shown on the map as well. So if you want to stop by there first, that might help. Go back to the question about where is Aurora Sports Park. So project 2F is, we have 3 parks that we've already done the master planning for. Some of you probably sat in this room and helped us with the master planning for Central Community Park. That's the park that's just outside this wall. Goes from here over to the park. So it's currently undeveloped, and we have already done the master plan. We've already asked the public in this area, what do they want in this park? So we have a concept, but we have a big funding gap. So there's 3 parks like that. Red-tailed hawk, the 3rd phase of Red-tailed Hawk Park in Ward 6, Central here, and Skywatch also in Ward 6. These are parks we've already done the work. We're partway there. We've got the concept, and we're working on construction documents. But we have a funding gap. It would cost us $45 million to do these. We need $28 million of that. We have set aside the rest. But to do it in full, we need the full $45 million. Project 2G, we're moving on to neighborhood parks. Everybody's got a neighborhood park. We have neighborhood parks spread across the city. We have over 60 neighborhood parks in the city of Aurora. And what we've done here is prioritize the worst ones in each ward. So this project, 2G, is 7 parks that are in the worst need of renovations. And we typically spend about $4 million on a neighborhood park renovation. We currently do neighborhood park renovations, but not at a rate that is completing them fast enough to really upgrade that infrastructure for people. So it typically involves playground replacement of tennis courts, basketball courts, pickleball courts, addition of new kind of amenities, refreshing those things. And really important is our ADA accessibility. Every time we renovate a park, we're bringing up everything in that park to current ADA standards, and that's a very important piece of infrastructure for us. So this is 2G. Next is, about a year ago, you probably remember that one of the conversations we were having was about closing Beck Recreation Center. We had a recreation center that was built in the late 60s in Northeast Aurora that we had to shut down. That combined with all the growth in Ward 2, we have a real recreation gap in that part of the city. So we've put this project here for a new Northeast Aurora Rec Center on the list of projects that we need to prioritize and figure out where that lands with our public. And that would be like the facility we're sitting in now. We need something like this in Northeast Aurora somewhere. Thanks.
Apologies.
Is this better?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. I don't have to yell. So this is item number 2H, would be a new rec center in Northeast Aurora. We're currently working and just began working on a feasibility study for where that might be, what that might be, and it just went out to bid. And you'll be asked to come together and give us more information if you are a Ward 2 resident or Northeast Aurora resident over the rest of this year. Next project we want to talk about is Plains Conservation Center. Anybody been to Plains Conservation Center? You guys don't count. They're there all the time. So, okay, great. Plains Conservation Center is a wonderful 1,200-acre open space property right in the city. So it's right off between Hampton and Jewel on the east side of the city, just west of E470. And that property has got so much potential, and we actually in 2019 completed a master plan for that property as well. And so this is another example of one where we've done the planning, we have a concept, but we have a big funding gap. It would take about $35 million to realize the items in that master plan. Of course, those things can be phased over time, and we would talk about that, but we want to see how this one ranks with people. We need to replace the visitor center in a proper location. It's in a location that's not great for what we're trying to do there. Everything there is 40 to 70 years old. So we make do with a lot of stuff. We need to upgrade the utilities. There's amenities in different use areas across the landscape that we have a desire to put in if we could afford to do that. We need to expand the maintenance functions, and then we need to focus on fully restoring that site. It's a short grass prairie site that, with the riparian corridor down the middle, is really an impressive place. It says 3J up here, but it's actually 2J. It is, we have a lot of other recreation centers, not just these brand new ones like this, that are older and need a lot of upgrades to like things that aren't as sexy, but they're necessary. The things Laura was mentioning, windows, roofs, doors, soffits, and other renovations that just need to happen across our system. So that's listed up here as 2J. It's the last one on in that row. And I think that was all the projects. So I guess there's time for some questions and answers. And that me, I get to stay up here and answer questions. Who's got questions? Rosie.
So, Plains Conservation Center, that's hooked in somehow with the Botanic Gardens, is it not?
We have a partnership that we work with them. They do some educational programming on the site for youth. So about every 4th or 5th grader, I can't remember which age, in Aurora makes their trip out there to learn about Colorado history and about the plains of Colorado and the shortgrass prairie as well.
Would there be any chance that they could help pony up some money to assist with that project?
Great idea.
I like that.
Great idea. Yeah. What other questions? Sir in the back that couldn't hear me before. You, yes, sir.
I have a couple questions for you. One is, I hope it doesn't sound like a gripe. but
Uh-oh.
Utah Park
Yes.
has been neglected in the recreation center.
Oh, I'm gonna make you happy.
For almost a year.
Yep.
I can't understand why that has just fallen apart for the city.
$2.3 million. Okay.
Second issue, the fastest growing sport in the country is pickleball. I don't
Yes.
see any emphasis, any attention to this anywhere in the plans.
Thank you for your question, because you're going to be happy. We are coming to the end of a $2.3 million repair to Utah Pool. So about a year ago, yeah, we had issues with the gas line coming in, the water line coming in, and during those repairs, we found out that the pool was leaking considerably. So we've spent almost a year with a contractor in there working to complete renovations to the pool. So the great news is that we expect to be open in April. So Utah Pool should be open in April. Don't tell anybody, but for you, April. Now, also this year, we're beginning a project to replace all 9 tennis courts that are right outside Utah Pool. And we're bidding out 4 pickleball courts to go with it. So 4 pickleball courts in Utah Park. Yeah.
Any place else that you?
We have pickleball in almost every park that we've renovated in the last 5 years. So the closest one to here would be probably Crestridge,
Yeah.
Fulton, the ones just popping off the top of my head, Seven Hills,
Park Lane.
Park Lane, thank you. So we have pickleball in almost every renovation we've done across the city. How many total pickleball courts do we have now?
Oh, gosh,
19?
I'd have to look.
I was thinking it was 19
Yes.
courts so far. We're going to add 4 more at Utah this year.
All of the parks that are master planned,
Oh, yeah.
that were on that list, have plans for pickleball as well.
Yep. So that's Project 2F, has pickleball in each one of those.
Yes.
Ma'am?
You guys are gonna hate me, but regarding pickleball,
Yes, ma'am.
it's just too noisy for me.
Yes, ma'am. So what
And
we,
Are there regulations in place for how close they can be to neighborhoods?
yes, ma'am. We're very sensitive to that. We have turned down a couple projects because we just couldn't get them to fit. So the master plan concept for this park, that's right outside here, includes pickleball courts, but they would be on that side of the rec center over by the road, and the storage units that are over there, put them close to the industrial, a long ways, as far away as we can get them from the residential. Am I right on that?
Yes.
Yes?
You want me to expand?
I don't know. Nicole Anthony, she's our manager of planning, design, and construction.
Yes, hi everyone. We're working on solidifying standards for pickleball and many other things as we are updating our current PROS manual. That's the shortened name for our development and our design and development criteria manual. So that's a manual that the city uses to determine park and recreation regulations. So everything from the sizes of parks, but it also gets into the details on what is required as private developers come into the city. So one of the items of emphasis there is on crafting specific standards on buffer zones, and if you can't meet a buffer zone, what kind of soundproofing impacts are required if you can't meet the distance on a buffer zone. So those are all in development as well.
Very important topic. Thank you for the question. Bob?
Brian, would you say something about the open space aspect of this? So these are all infrastructure projects.
Yes.
But what about acquisition of new open space? As the city of Aurora grows and expands, is there some commitment to maintain about 10% of the city as open space? Because there's a lot of us that, as you know, really love the open space.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. So we have the PROS dedication and design criteria manual that Nicole was just mentioning, and that governs it. That the rules in there for when we have a new development application or new development happening, that sets aside, or that establishes how much open space they have to set aside. So that happens through development of new areas of the city. Now, we will be revising that as part of this too, but it'll probably stay very similar. That probably isn't going to change much. So I would expect the same amount of open space in newer areas of the city as in existing areas of the city. Now, I think you touched on another point about acquisitions. Like, do we actively go out and seek acquisitions? Well, currently we're not talking about that in this project, right. But we could develop an acquisition plan and actually set aside money for that if that was important as well, which it is important. So,
the Aurora Reservoir. Last year you had a open session on 5 different opportunities for
Yes.
the roadway to get in there. Is that tied into that
Yes.
at all? Okay.
Yep, that is definitely one of the items, Aurora Reservoir, ingress, egress,
Okay.
upgrades. So,
thank you.
yeah, we looked at 5 different alternatives on how to fix the traffic problem that we have out there. And that study is just completing, and then we'll move into 30% design after that. I saw a question right here.
Not a question, I just want to make a statement that we do have.
Could you speak a little louder? I can't hear you.
Speak louder, please.
Oh, give them the mic, yeah. There we go.
Sorry. We do have Sand Creek Conservatory as an open space, and we do have Highland Canal Conservatory as an open space, which is not really officially with the city of Aurora, but it works in conjunction with the city. So I just wanted to say.
Good comment. Yeah, we have over 8,000 acres of open space in the city of Aurora. We have 115 miles of trail, and a lot of that goes through open space. Yes, ma'am.
I volunteer with the High Line.
Yay.
Yeah, but we have a problem with ATVs.
Yep.
But on the other side of that coin, I talk to parents and people who are like, well, where do these kids go with their ATVs?
Yep.
Are there any plans to incorporate that into, because it's a real problem, you know it is, but
Yes.
again, parents are wondering where their kids should go.
Yeah. We don't currently have anything like that in our system, some sort of an off-road park or off-road facility. We just do not. That's not something we're considering in any of these projects. But thank you. Doug.
You did not mention golf courses.
Correct.
They're obviously a recreational function of the city. Or the
Thank you.
The motorsports
Yep.
thing like ATVs. So my question is basically, what things are you not looking at?
Sure. So golf
for
courses
these
is one.
projects, but maybe down the road?
Yeah, golf courses is one. We are limited in the city. We have 5 existing golf courses, and we're limited by ordinance. That's all we're going to have ever as a city. Now, our existing golf courses are an enterprise fund. So this is looking at, so there's an extremely consistent revenue source there. It's tee times and greens fees. So that money is what would go towards infrastructure improvements on a golf course, for example. So we generate money from the golfers paying greens fees, and then we use that money to improve golf courses. This is talking about things that we don't have a funding source for. That was a really important point early on, is that these are all things that we want. These are all very valuable projects, but we just can't afford to do them all. So that's the question before us, is how do we rank these, and then how do we package and figure out how to finance them and fund them? Because these are things that we all know we need. And you said any other things that we're not looking at. We don't have any trails on this one, because that's another one where we have other alternate funding sources for. We have good grant programs that we can seek to do trail improvements and things, so you don't see any real trail projects here. These are kind of those bigger ticket items that we really don't have a good funding source for.
As a follow-up, when you mentioned that you're limited to 5 golf courses.
Yes.
What does that do with the future population? I mean, is that true in 2050?
It is
obviously,
true.
you could change the ordinance, but.
Yeah, it's mostly about water. We don't have the water supply
I think there's one private golf course that's going to go forward
Yes.
that came out, that was approved before the ordinance went forward.
Yeah.
No,
But municipal-wise, we're done.
I mean, you've got, 400,000 people now?
Yep.
What is the expected population? I mean, when you get to 600,000 people in the city, then your facilities are crowded, even though you don't have the water.
We've put forward some very tough water conservation measures on new development that's necessary, and so unless a golf course would have drought-resistant landscape, and I don't think that's feasible probably for the.
Water conservation is going to be a theme for us as a city
for the rest of the time that we're in existence. We're not going to be able to avoid water conservation in any project. So, but to your point, it's going to be awful hard to get a tea time 50 years from now. So
in thinking about how I'm going to rank these things,
yes, sir.
I'm thinking about two things: geographically dispersed across the city.
Yep.
And because eventually the voters are going to have to weigh in on that. So
yes, sir.
I'm thinking about what would be palatable to the voters to approve. Because if you want all of these things, $259 million, I don't think the voters are going to approve it.
Nope.
So it's a matter of trying to figure out which ones of these would be palatable to the voter. It doesn't just apply to pros, applies to public safety, transportation, everything else. So that's how I'm thinking about how I'm going to rank this.
Right.
That's correct, Brad. And that is a great transition to our prioritization and feedback exercise tonight. So, Jesse Byrne, walk us through.
And on top of that, as of 15 minutes ago, now we need a new PA to add to the capital projects too. So things are changing moment by moment, apparently. Aging infrastructure, moment to moment. Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Jesse Byrne, and I'm going to be your facilitator for this evening. I am a neutral facilitator, which what I mean by that is that I am not attached to any one of these particular projects in Build Up Aurora. My job here tonight is to be able to do exactly what we were just hearing in terms of understanding your perspectives, your feedback, what the needs are that you see in your communities. And I think we so often get into a space where we ask the subject matter experts, and we've got several of them here in the room, and they'll continue to be a really valuable resource to respond to your questions and help you ensure that you're being informed. But I would also turn the table around on all of you, that you all are actually subject matter experts because you know what you need in your communities. And your opinion is really, really important. It's what's going to be very influential in terms of helping us prioritize these projects. How many of you have ever been on the phone with your bank or healthcare company or fill in the blank, and they say, after 35 minutes, your opinion matters. Please take this survey at the end. And you think to yourself, yeah, right, my opinion matters. How many of you, just show of hands, how many of you have ever had that experience, right? It's kind of frustrating because you're thinking, yeah, right, my opinion doesn't matter. Well, tonight your opinion does matter, and we'll actually say it a different way. Your feedback will be utilized. And so tonight we're going to go through a couple different exercises. One is going to be around prioritization and ranking of all of these projects that you just heard presented to you. And then we are also going to get some written feedback from you and some 4 questions that are on the page in front of you. Each one of you should have at your table. Before we jump into the instructions around that, I see everybody already getting ready. I love that. Just show of hands, just to get a sense of who we have in the room. How many of you last year heard of Build Up Aurora before you came here tonight? You had already kind of heard about it. Maybe you had read something about it. Okay, so about half the room. How many of you maybe filled out a survey on Build Up Aurora? Okay, so maybe about a third of you. Okay, and then how many of you is this the first time tonight is when you've really heard about Build Up Aurora and started? Okay, that's great. We've got actually a good mix in the room, which is useful. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started here. And so all of you at each table should have these colorful dots. And each one of you gets a dot of each color. There are 5 different colors. And I'm going to go through kind of the coding here. And you can also look up here and also ask me if you forget. Each one of these dots represents a ranking for you. You're going to look at all of these projects that you just received a presentation on. And if you want to kind of reflect on how you're going to rank them in your mind, that's totally okay. But you're going to think about what is your number 1 ranked project out of all the ones that you just heard from Brian. And then you're going to put a red dot on that specific project poster sheet. I don't want to influence anybody, so let's say that I've got a poster sheet up there that says, this one is for project X, Y, and Z. If I think X, Y, and Z is my number 1 priority in this, the highest ranked in my mind, it's the one that I think is the most important, I'm going to put a red dot on the XYZ poster. And then you're going to do the same all the way down from 1 to 5. So your second prioritized, second ranked project will receive a blue dot, which stands for 2. Green dots are a 3. Pink dots are a 4. Teal dots are a 5. And again, the key is up here if you forget. But you will stick your blue dot on your second ranked, your green dot on your third ranked, your pink dot on your fourth ranked, and your teal dot on your fifth ranked. And so you might want to tear these up so that everybody at the table gets one, but everybody should get each color one dot. I got this question a couple nights ago, so I'm going to mention it again. Is that you only get 5. You only get 5 projects that you can rank order. The ones that don't even make it in your top 5, they don't get a color dot from you. And so when I say ready, set, go, we're going to have everybody get up here in a moment. And you're going to move over towards some of these posters. There might be a little bit of a bottleneck over here, so maybe we'll try to clear out some space so everybody can get there. But you'll move over to these posters. You'll place your dots on them. I'm going to give everybody 15 minutes to do so. And then once everybody is back at their table, I'll give you further instructions. If you need any clarification on this, please feel free to come up and ask me. And with that, do we have any questions so far?
Do you want to keep it? Yeah.
And we've got drafts of the projects if you want to read through them again over here with Kim and Brian. All right, 15 minutes, ready, set, go.
Anybody need a written description of the project? And you guys already have it figured out.
I did. Sorry. ILL. All right. Very good. Of course.
That's right.
I don't think so.
It is kind of already done. I walk it. The trail that they want, the water department, the water And the interpretive signs. We had to change our laws.
It had its night. We had to move on. I actually. Yeah, that's why.
I'm sure you know. And then we're rolling for you. Just sat next to her today. Are you over at, Windsor? Yeah, we serve on the committee together. And we're gonna do it'll be July 24th at Del Park. We're gonna do a walk with seniors. Yeah. Friday. And I just started working on that. So you'll get to
As much space as possible.
and
Tom and I went out there to check it out. Got our first day. Oh, really? Tom says he's going to try and get it. Don't figure it out. They had enough passports already and everything? Well, so he's all in. We were
That's not open. It's open.
So that's what we were doing.
Responses are really varied.
My wife and I went there after. I know.
Yeah,
So we went there for the restaurant.
Looks like Plains might have the most. Yeah, Plains and
Are you all done? We only picked 4. Brad, the test was 5, not 4. You don't get extra points. Never been able to. Come on, it was
Hey, good to see you. Thank you all for coming out. Oh, yeah. Well, you don't anything to ask about the open space. You don't wear all those. I
Right. Ready, set, go?
I was done quick.
You were ready.
I've practiced it, so good. Those are red and orange.
You know, somebody else said that the blues look like purple.
Yes, they do. So I had to go through it several times to make sure I didn't work it up.
Yeah, we appreciate you not working. All right, we're gonna pull everybody back together. Almost everybody. Fantastic. Okay, so if I can get everyone's attention, we're gonna come back. We'll come back to the dots that everybody placed up here on the different projects. But I'm going to give you some instructions on kind of the next phase of this. We know that we've got folks in the room that are extroverted, folks that are also probably introverted, and so we have this component as well. If you're less talkative, we still want to hear from you. We are going to collect your information in terms of the responses that you're going to provide. Each one of you at your seat should have one of these questionnaires. There's 4 questions on here. The reason we ask for zip code is so we can maybe identify some regional similarities or regional feedback. But you're going to take the next, this is going to feel a bit like high school. We're all going to get quiet. It's like 10 minutes or so. And we want you to go through each one of these questions. And whether you're reflecting on the presentation or you're reflecting on the ranking that you just did with the dots, use that to help inform your responses to these questions. I'll go ahead and read them out loud real quick. So the first question is, please describe your thoughts about each of the capital projects you ranked with colored dots 1 through 5 as to why and or how you ranked them. This got into Brad's comment, responding to Brian around his thinking of how he prioritizes it. All of you are going to have your own thinking around how you ranked the projects, and there's no right or wrong. This is just personal choices of how you feel about these projects and the thinking that you use to arrive at your own conclusions. And we are interested in your thinking on how you prioritized. Second question, do the capital projects detailed in the presentation reflect the needs you see in your Aurora neighborhood and or citywide for parks, recreation, and open space? So you'll write down your response to that. The third question, can you explain how they do or do not reflect those needs? We got into some dialogue around pickleball, ATVs. You can rank order and talk about how you feel around these projects, but if there's some that you feel warrant the city to take another look at and focus on that are not necessarily reflected in these slides, but are still part of parks, recreation, and open space, we want to hear that from you. We want to understand, are we focused on the right projects in this category? And that goes to question 4, the last one. Are there any capital projects with parks, recreation, and open space that were not presented that you think needs prioritization from the city of Aurora? And if so, what are they? So if you can please take the next 10 minutes or so to respond to those questions. We are going to collect your feedback. Don't worry too much about your handwriting. We've gotten pretty good at reading that across the board. And then we'll come back together and we'll have a bit of a group debrief. Thanks.
Do you want data centers and open space?
You want to swim and see everything?
Yeah, right by the abortion. Yeah, because I haven't achieved my okay. No picture on the wall.
Is part of the development review process? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really small. It's really big. It's a tiny place.
Yeah. Interesting.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like a long time ago. Was it pre-COVID or after COVID? I can't remember. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. I gotta go back to another meeting.
Give everybody 2 more minutes.
That's what you did ask the other day, was whether you could stick all of your dots on the same one. That's true. I asked for 10.
Okay.
You asked for
Because you
more
want to
dots.
fill up all the animal shelters.
Yeah.
Can you go out to first? Are you gonna like post a list?
Yeah, yeah, I did.
Of specific projects?
Yeah. Yep. We'll have a project list.
So you'll take like the most, like for each, like transfer station part.
I don't think you're making it. I mean, we don't know that. It should be on the book. Because we do have ranking. You said that there's something about ranking evaluation. The tape measure. Oh, there's a piece here. Here. It's an ad that's supposed to have. Oh, it's itself. No, this Give it about 1 more minute.
Okay, if you're still writing, that's completely fine. We want you to take the time you need to respond. We'll go ahead though and get started with just some broader group questions, and anybody can respond to these. And as you respond, you can be thinking about your responses based on the way that you ranked these different posters, these different projects, your responses to these questions, or just in your thinking after receiving the presentation. So can anybody just share with us just your initial thoughts around the projects that were presented within the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space? What were some initial thoughts that you thought of, just your gut check on those different projects? Yes?
Why are we playing catch up on so much?
Why are we playing catch up on so much? Well, and so, do you want to take that, Brian?
It's math.
We have a very aging infrastructure, right? I mean, the city of Aurora now has been around for generations. There's parts of the city that, that were developed or that were created, Parks, Rec, Open Space. There's other categories that are similar that started in the 60s and 70s. And then depending on where you live in other parts of the city, there's areas that might be only 10 or 15 years old. And so the ongoing maintenance to be able to catch up with those needs as the city also expands in its population is an ever-growing kind of need. I want thoughts though and recommendations. We want to stay away from the questions, and we want to hear thoughts and recommendations or ideas. What all of you are feeling, what all of you are thinking. What were some other thoughts and feelings you had after you received the presentation?
So I know we talked about how it's not feasible at this time to acquire land for open space and stuff, but as you go through Aurora, there's got to be land that's just sitting, doing nothing. There's like along Colfax, there's lands just sitting there that for decades that need to be turned into a simple park, a simple with some paths.
So we're not necessarily going to go through each item and try to give like responses and recommendations, but I appreciated that. Your point is that there's plenty of land out there, and there's got to be some ways that the city can refocus and be able to understand where those land and opportunities are. So I hear you on that. Thank you. Yes?
I look at it really from a numbers game. Aurora Reservoir sees hundreds, dare I say, thousands of people over the summer. Hundreds of thousands, particularly during the pandemic, and the Plains Conservation Center. So if we're going to spend money, let's put money where people are going to be able to benefit and realize the value of this place.
Can I ask you a follow-up question?
Sure.
So when you were going through and you were prioritizing, did that play into your thinking in terms of where the most usage is, where the most people would be using it?
That was one of the criteria.
Okay, what was the other one?
The other criteria was age of things and the fact that they're falling apart.
Okay, so something that's really been outdated or old and is in desperate need of renovation. So I'm hearing renovation needs and the ability for that project to serve the most people. I'm just curious, show of hands, how many else of you in the room might have used similar thinking? And if you didn't, that's completely fine. But I'm seeing a lot of hands go up, so you're definitely not alone in that thinking. What were some other thoughts that you had received?
I tried to think about which projects represented something unique. So I don't want to step on Bob here at all, but like for example, the Aurora Reservoir. I mean, that's a pretty unique place. It's used by a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And so I would rank things highly if they were unique. And I'm not like dissing on city parks. I think those are very important, especially the local ones. But when you have a facility like Aurora Reservoir, a Plains Conservation Center, I put that in the same category as being unique. It's kind of like the premier open space we have. And so I rank them highly on the basis of uniqueness.
That's interesting as well. So really just thinking about how unique a specific project is, and maybe to add on to that, maybe the uniqueness of some of these is what makes Aurora, Aurora, right? You can't go to Aurora Reservoir in any other area, right? It's some of these unique features of the city that makes us who we are in terms of as a community. And so it seemed like that was a really key influential piece in how you were thinking about your ranking. Yes?
Yeah, I want to make best utilization of what we already have.
Okay.
And that tends to be the less expensive stuff. And I was also interested in, like Aurora Reservoir, what kind of utilization do you get? So we wanted to do that, plus expanding the areas that aren't served, like the Ward 2 Recreation Center. There's no service up there. So maintain what you've got, and then look where the action is, and keep that going, and then serve new areas.
It almost, as I listen to you, it sounds like you almost had like a tiered, like a number of criteria that you had in your mind, and how you were applying your ranking and responding.
And I would say, of course, any of these projects are worthy.
Yeah.
And that makes it tough. They're all worthy projects.
I want to go on that comment. And there were some other comments that we had in another session that reminds me of that. But how many of you wish that you had been given more than 5 that you could have prioritized? Right? Now you are in the seat that the city is in. Right? Because we can only fund so many different types of projects, right? And it becomes tough in terms of picking and choosing. It's not that the ones that were the 6th or the 7th weren't valuable. It's just that you end up having to prioritize, right? And so I appreciate that comment. Back here.
A couple comments. As I look around the room, there's an awful lot of us old. I'm in my 80s. So when I try to prioritize some of these things, I'm looking at those things that maybe I can take some advantage of. And quite frankly, I know that the Aurora Reservoir, and I've been there, is wonderful. Pretty damn far out for me. I live pretty close to Havana. And so I'm looking for areas that I and my wife in our 80s can reasonably expect to enjoy. That's why we'll focus on swimming, we'll focus on some of the activities like that. But I also, just as a comment, there's very few of us have the multicultural element that is prevalent in Aurora here commented. And somehow, I think, if you can, more attention needs to be made to see if you can tap into the kind of interests that other folks have in terms of these activities.
Very keen.
Second that.
Very keen. I think there's a lot of people in here that agree with that. Very keen observation. Let's all be honest with ourselves. How many of you used a little bit of your own self-interest when you were thinking about what you were prioritizing and ranking? What was up the street from you? What you use most often? What you personally like? You know, and that's okay. That's actually what we're looking for. But this is a city of 400,000 residents, and maybe some of you already know this. We are actually the most diverse city in the state, and we wear that with pride. And so, yes, there does need to be equitable representation in terms of who's giving input and how these decisions are being made. I want to not go too far into a tangent, but we do have an online survey or an online questionnaire, make sure I'm using the right word, that is going to be made available to the public. So somebody can maybe not be here this evening, but they can still give feedback on these projects online. And we've been really consistent going back to April of last year and engaging with every ward throughout this city. And we are also trying to move these locations for each of these throughout the city as well. This one happens to be here, but we'll be in Northwest Aurora, we'll be in Southeast Aurora. And so we are going to see different demographics as we move to different locations. So between the online access and the in-person that are in different areas of the city, we're hoping that we get more representation because it is very important, and I appreciate that observation. Yes, here in the back.
To your question about, and I'm over 70, I didn't see anything, and maybe it's an improvement, but what about skate parks? I mean, and I'm looking at that piece of, and we struggle with this on the canal, of how do we make this available to the youth in our communities in a safe way, so that we are also safe on that, you know, on that canal or on that trail or whatever. I mean, there's safety issues, but we also need to, and I come here to work out. I do yoga here. I love this center. And it's very diverse, and we get a wonderful mix of people. Saturday mornings, it's nothing but families playing basketball, and it's representative of the community. So I hope in those renovations and all that you are doing things where kids can come, and the skate park thing, I don't get it, but.
But I appreciate you advocating for the kids that do get it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody doesn't want to get run over.
Yeah. Look, not to go on a tangent, but in October we launched our first ever Youth Civic Engagement Academy in this exact room. And we had 15 high school students that were engaged in civic leadership and receiving presentations from a variety of different departments that took the time to educate them about how municipal government works. I bet if we had a room of 16 through 18-year-olds here, they would have some different priorities, and that's okay. And I appreciate your feedback and your input. Maybe that also signals to us that we need to think about also engaging youth in some of our feedback within Build Up Aurora. So that point, Scott here is taking, you all might be thinking he's not writing down any notes, he's not thinking, no, he's taking notes of what you're saying.
It's all online.
It's all online, but we also want to engage directly with youth, yes.
We did an event at Green Valley Ranch, and the outreach last summer was kind of mediocre, 200 people. And then one of our members of the committee went online with it. It was a family event in the fall, Green Valley Ranch Park. We had 825 people show up, and it was all from his outreach online. And we promoted the event as a family-free event, food family-free.
Yep.
And we got, every color of the rainbow, every community was represented, and they brought their kids. And we had face painting and all that kind of stuff. But the big push that got all those different communities there was online outreach.
Yep, I appreciate that. We've noted that. Let's keep moving along. We're running a little low on time, and I want to make sure I hear from everyone, if possible, not anyone that wants to speak here in the room. Just really quickly, looking at the dots up here on the poster sheets, one of the things that was interesting is we often look for if certain projects are ranked higher than others, meaning that we see a lot of red dots. And we're actually looking across the board. It looks like Plains Conservation Center improvements, recreation centers, facility improvements had a fair share of high ranking, but it's actually fairly varied across the board, which means that there's a lot of different thinking here in the room, which is great. Yeah, I see a hand back there. Do you want to maybe speak to yours?
When I was looking at it, okay, and we did discuss here at the table a little bit the demographics, and so I'm glad you're doing the other outreach, but if you build it, you have to be able to maintain it. And that's always in the back of my mind. That it's great that we do all this, but if it's gonna be like Utah, that we have to shut down, and that's gonna happen. But you also have to have the vision to build for the future as well. You have to do both of those, but when you're doing it, like the sports park, you can raise money by using them, by getting the tournaments in, and make them so that it's not just, this is going to sound bad, a drag on the taxpayers, because if you're not bringing the money in to help pay for this, it's going to put us in the same position that we're in. So, try to think bigger on how can we get the money to come in to help pay for these so that it's not just the taxpayers that are footing the bill, but we can, rent it out, do things like that.
I heard a word whispered over here, sustainable. And that's exactly right. Or in terms of, you seem like you're engaging in the long-term thinking of how is something maintained and the ongoing cost to ensure that that is maintained so that we don't end up in a room just like this one maybe 20 years from now, talking about some other projects that have now become outdated. And so I also hear the call out around taxpayer dollars and how those are supporting or not supporting because there's other types of funding sources being used, the ongoing maintenance piece of some of these projects. So that seemed to be a really big part of your thinking. So thank you for sharing that. Does anybody else want to share why they ranked a certain project higher and what that project was? Just their thinking around it? Yes.
I'll try to chime in here, and it's a little bit of what was said as well. I'm a current father of a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old, and so when I was ranking, I was like, what do my kids want right now? And then what do I want 10 years from now when I'm an empty nester? And I think for right now, what really comes to my mind is our school districts are having a lot more days where those kids aren't in school anymore. And so having something for parents to take those kids to go to really played a lot into my thinking here, because all of a sudden you get 2 days off for President's Day. I just don't want it. But that was a joke.
Yes.
But I had to find stuff for my kids to do this week, and I think the Parks and Rec and open space areas are like huge for that, for taking the kids there to those locations.
I'm curious, how many in here have grandkids? Right, and so this is starting to become a theme, so we're going to be noting that, is a focus on children and youth and giving them some of the spaces and places that they're going to need. And it also helps parents, it maybe even helps grandparents. So we appreciate you sharing that thinking. Yes?
One of the things I don't understand is recreation centers are closed on school holidays. I mean, the ones that I've experienced. And so, because they're closed, then people can't bring their kids to the recreation center. I don't know if that's because the employees say they
So I am going to ask you maybe to connect with a pros staff member afterwards, because I do want to focus us on capital projects and not as much hours of operation. That kind of takes us in a different direction. Yes, back here.
I just wanted to voice an opinion on the different parks. He was talking about the parks and the different projects. I hope that somewhere in this group of deciding what's happening, that we look at maybe outside of the box on these parks and make things more family friendly for every age. So while the little kid's there, the mom could be walking laps around a track that's around the park, or there's stuff for teenagers. So every age is going to the park, not just parents taking little kids. And so I think the renovation, the EFG, two EFGs are all important, and I hope that in whatever they're gonna be doing with that, they don't make them all the same, and that they're thinking about like who else can it service besides just grandkids or little kids.
I hear a really multi-generational thinking from you, that these spaces need to be designed with multi-generation in mind. How many of you, when you were kids, went to a library or a park or an open space, and then that set the tone for the rest of your life in terms of your relationship with those kinds of things? You had positive experiences with those. And now, according to some of you, I'm not, you're 70s, 80s, that's what I'm hearing, right? Is that's a lifelong love of some of those spaces. And so it has to start right at a young age. It has to be multi-generational to be able to engage different age groups, families, kids, older individuals, everybody, all of the above.
And even art, I mean, we're a city of art. We're promoting ourselves as that, and having art all over the city. I think we should take an opportunity in these different parks and put up art that, local artists or whoever, and have little information tabs for kids to learn about, or the adults to go read about, and okay, this is cool, but just kind of tie it all together.
Yep, art is again one of those, reminds me of the other comment around what makes Aurora unique. Art in a way does make us unique. Art in itself is unique, and so recognizing that we can use some of those spaces for that opportunity. One of the things I love about the municipal center is when you walk on the second floor, there's a whole hallway of art often from local high school students, all other types of local artists, and I feel like it just brings so much unique energy and vibes to a governmental building. I think I saw another hand go up. Anyone else wanted to share? Yes?
I like the intergenerational idea a whole lot. Being an older guy, the little ones, they're all coming up. But it also gives you the opportunity to have a space where you can intentionally nudge toward more social connectedness between generations, and older folks kind of keep an eye on younger, it's a village. You start recreating villages a little more, not just little one-offs.
There's a term for what you're saying, and it's called social cohesion. And it sounds like a very academic term, but actually folks like Scott and myself, we think about this in community engagement all the time. Social cohesion, to kind of break it down, is the bottom line is, do you know your neighbor? How many of you in here know your neighbor? You know their name, you know their first name. They know you, right? And sometimes we have less and less of that, unfortunately. but that very topic that you're talking about, how can we use parks, recreation, open spaces to bring communities together, where people make new friends, they meet new neighbors. Social cohesion has also been demonstrated to create better safety and more resources for people that they share those resources with each other. And so it's a very, very valid point. Any other thoughts in terms of your thinking as to how you prioritize? Yes.
Well, I was going to make a comment that we still have a problem with, at least more than one, but homeless folks in the parks and living in their cars on the streets next to the parks. And it's a security problem, and it's a health problem. And I think the city could do a lot more with addressing that.
And so one of the things I was debating in my mind at the beginning of this is to provide distinction between capital project versus services. And so we are focused on capital projects this evening. If there's services that are needed, whether it be to address homelessness, and I'm actually in the department that has the division that works on homelessness, or safety issues, there is going to be another one on safety, a different Build Up Aurora session. But that is an ongoing need in the community. We are very aware of it. There are some communities that are having more of that than others. We opened the NAV Center. I'm not going to go off kind of into the discussion around services, but what you're saying is very valid, and it is something that we are very aware of. And I think a lot of us, right, all you got to do is drive around, and you know there's a lot of people that are struggling with being unhoused. And so I appreciate you mentioning that. We are going to focus on buildings, bridges, open spaces, those kinds of things. Yes?
You're talking about capital projects. I'm also in a metro district, and we recognize in our shelters that we need to have solar activated motion lights because the shelters are dark. And we most recently had a shooting incident in our community because the kids all hang out in a dark shelter. So I was thinking about improving parks, solar powered lights that are motion activated will eliminate a lot of that darkness.
And reduce costs as well.
Yep.
So solar lighting is something that we can note. Any other kind of closing thoughts or ideas on how you ranked your projects? Anything? All right, I'm going to ask you just one last question, which is, for the projects that you ranked as a 1, a 2, or a 3, how many of you, and this is different for each of you, right? You all had different rankings, a 1, a 2, or a 3, how many of you would support that project if it was presented to you as part of a bond package? Show of hands. How many would still support if it was 1 through 5? So you had the 4 and 5 on there too. Okay. All right. Any other last thoughts that anyone wants to share on how they ranked or their prioritization or other related projects we should also be focused on? So I'm going to collect, after this concludes, all of your written responses. We are going to take that as feedback data that will be used to influence our decision making. We're also going to be tabulating all of this as well in terms of the ranking. We've taken a lot of notes. I really appreciate such thoughtful comments and feedback and engagement from all of you. We're very lucky to have residents such as yourselves, and thanks so much for being here tonight. I'll turn it back over to Laura.
All right, so as we close up tonight, just some next steps on our end. So as a reminder, your input tonight will help the city understand the community's top project priorities, help us prioritize our 10-year capital plan, and of course, inform our infrastructure task force and their recommendations, which could include a potential bond package. We do have additional community engagement planned for March and April. Further information will be provided on that. And then most importantly, you heard about our questionnaire, our online ranking tool. So we have these handy dandy QR codes that are available, as well as a list of all of our remaining Ranking Roundup meetings. So I encourage you to attend others. If you can't join us for transportation, libraries, arts and culture, and public safety, please fill out the survey. All of that information will be compiled along with the information we've collected from all of our sessions. And so with that, I do have a quick trivia game, if you all have a couple minutes to spare as we wrap up.
I've got from Tuesday.
So question, how many neighborhood parks are over 20 years old? No?
I think you told me.
I'm testing you if you were listening.
More than 10.
More than
Anyone else?
9%.
A number. Has to be a number. 63. How many fire stations are over 50 years old?
Except for nine, right?
Except for 9. Who said 5? Yeah! You
gave us the answer.
Oh, well, see? I wanted to see how many of you took a handout. All right.
Like I knew I saw it somewhere.
Okay. How many of our bridges were built before 1988? This is a percentage. A good number. 56, all right. We'll go with the World in the City tote. You're very welcome. Okay, I got one more for you. What is the city's oldest park and what year was it built?
Del Mar in 56.
Yes, there you go. City of Aurora Sox. All right. With all seriousness, thank you all tonight for taking the time to spend with us and provide feedback and conversation.